We'll go ahead and get started. Want to welcome you. We have quite a few people on the web platform, which is great because I know Facebook, we've had sort of an issue with the video cutting out or going black and white on us. And so we have much better resolution for those on the actual webcast. I want to welcome Kevin, Greg, Jason, Jeff, Martin, and Tim. Thanks for joining here. The first 6 in already, and then we've got people joining. I see Jonathan has joined. Hi, hey, Jason. Good to see you as well on Facebook live stream. I'll try to follow everything. It's been a few weeks since we were last together. So obviously we have quite a bit to cover today. What I'll be doing for today is I'll go through the updates to the release schedule for Compass Games. It's been several weeks again since we were last together. So I want to bring you up to speed on where we stand with the upcoming releases, game releases, and we'll just touch upon a few. And then, of course, we're going to be getting into the big pre-order announcement for today. So that's going to be the headliner for today, and I'll actually do that near the tail end of today's broadcast. So as a reminder for those on the Zoom platform, you'll see a little Q&A button. You can click on the Q&A button, and that will I'll get a notification if you have any questions for me. So I'm here for you if you have any questions for me. And then same for Facebook Live. On Facebook Live, where I see Jason and Jonathan so far, hopefully the live stream feeds will be coming through and I can answer questions on Facebook Live. Sometimes there's about a 20-second delay on Facebook from when I actually see the message and can respond to it. So that's typically how things work. So with that being said, let's go through. Let's start with a product release schedule update. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get going. So right now you should be able to see my screen. Let me just, I'm going to make my view a little smaller here. So again, just my image. So a few things have happened since we last spoke. Probably the biggest news of all is the release of Night Fighter Ace. So for those that follow, especially our Facebook page, we've probably had about 8 postings just on Night Fighter Ace. We have quite a few people have been playing Night Fighter, and I want to thank you all for sharing your pictures and sharing your first impressions of Night Fighter Ace. That's by Gregory M. Smith. That's a solitaire game, and we're getting a great response to it. So we're really happy to see that. The game's selling very well, and people are having a lot of fun with it. So I encourage you to check out Night Fighter Ace if you haven't already. Again, that's our most recent release on the right-hand side of the screen here as far as our release schedule. Now, I do want to talk about what our current pipeline looks like. So about a week ago, I did update the schedule. And actually it was on the 31st of August. I updated the schedule. We had a few changes. We sort of shuffled the lineup a little bit, and some items basically pushed out on average about a month or so, maybe 6 weeks. Main reason for that is sometimes components will come in later than we first anticipate, and that's actually the sort of the story behind, how our dates change. Typically, our schedule might actually move up, typically because items come in sooner for collation. But if you look at the left side here, the first thing I want to mention is I believe we're in our last 6 days of our first Euro game Kickstarter project. So Compass does have a new Euro games division, and that's headed by Uli Blenneman out of Germany. And just going to Kickstarter here, we have 6 days to go. And I want to thank those that are into Euro games at all and dabble in Euro games. Colonialism is an interesting title. It's quite historical, so it's not the type of family game that has to do with railroads or museums or basic geography. All different themes. It's tied quite closely to the historical theme of colonialism. And this is actually a second expanded edition of the game that was originally released by Spillworks several years ago. So it is a proven game. It has a good following. A lot of comments on Board Game Geek about it because it was released several years ago, the original release. So again, just want to thank everybody that does have an interest in Euro games for pledging and supporting colonialism. And again, we have 6 days left in our Kickstarter campaign, and then of course after Kickstarter we'll make some games available through retail direct purchase as well. So going back to our release schedule, now that we've talked about our Kickstarter for our Euro game, let's go back do some war game discussions, if you will. So I want to talk about what the next few releases from Compass will be. And we definitely have one for this month in less than 10 days. And then I'm hoping we'll see perhaps even Paper Wars will be out this month as well. It's sort of on the cut line between September, October. So I'm going to go through each one really quickly. So first we have Lebensraum. So Lebensraum is that Steven Newberg game that was released in the 80s. And I believe that one didn't have as large of a global coverage, the entire Europe coverage. I believe the initial Lebensraum just covered, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps Eastern Europe or East Front. I'll have to verify that, but this is definitely an expanded new edition box of Lebensraum. If you look at the product page, you'll see that it has quite a few components. It has 3 full maps, the total playing surface. I always like it when we give you a total playing surface. A lot of people have been asking us lately for multi-map games exactly what's the dimensions and size for tabletop consideration. So you can see the size is 50 by 35 inches. And for people like me that need to work on their eyes, it's nice that we have a slightly larger counters. So we've gone up from a 1/2 inch to 9/16 inch counters. So great to see that it's a nice bigger package for Lebensraum. We don't have the rules available yet. Typically they'll be out when the game is first shipping. I've had a few people inquire about wanting to see the rules. If you just shoot me an email directly, if the rules become available earlier, I'll be happy to send them to you by email. Just email me directly. It's really easy email. It's john@compassgames.com. So john@compassgames.com. Those emails come to me. And if I can get the PDF of the rules a few days early before the game is released on September 15th, I'll be happy to reply. I'll send you an email with a download link using WeTransfer. It's typically the service I use, so you won't get a huge email in your inbox. It's going to slow you down. I'll send it out as a download link. So just let me know if that's something you're interested in. And it's good to see Gary and Don and Greg joining us on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate it very much, and I'll try to keep an eye out for any questions or comments. So thank you again for joining. So we talked about Lebensraum. The next one is Paper Wars issue 90, which might make the cut before end of this month. So again, issue 90, it's on MacArthur, The Road to Bataan by Jack Green. This is also a game that's being reissued. If I go to Board Game Geek, you'll see in 1985, there was the release in Wargamer magazine of MacArthur, The Road to Bataan. And I went through the comments section of this game, and this is actually a smart title I think we picked for Paper Wars because it fits the nice footprint of a single map. But also, I noticed 1 or 2 comments said that 3W had some issues with the map or made some errors with the game. They had some errata in the game that 1 or 2 people weren't too happy about, and that's actually gold for like any game I do that's going to be a reprint. If there's a really good game out there, but it had all kinds of errors or could be done a lot better, that's a great way to address a new edition, because then you know it's going to be better quality and there'll be a bigger interest in getting the game that's just, you know, the quality is better overall, doesn't have those frustrating errors in it, etc. So again, MacArthur, Road to Bataan, to get the history on the game, check out Board Game Geek. But again, this is the all-new edition. And of course, with the all-new editions and working with Jack Green, it will come out as a much cleaner game. You won't see those types of errata, mistakes repeated, etc. So we're real excited. And a nice World War II title, again, to get out by end of this month. Next up, we have Commandant Colors, our first expansion for Tricorn. So again, this is also available on the pre-order page, which I'm showing you right here. Focuses really on the French, and you can see sort of the breakdown of the what's in the box, what the added components are that you'll get out of the game for those that have Tricorn already. I've seen really good reviews of it as far as Tricorn goes. So those that have been playing it and are fans of Richard Borg, they like the additional chrome that I believe has been added to the system by Richard. Has a little more detail to it. And again, obviously the topic being the American Revolutionary Wars is quite popular. So again, we're getting some really good feedback on Tricorn, and I know folks are excited to see that we have the expansion coming out, and that will be in the following month per our schedule. That will be in October. And then, of course, War for the Union. I'm not going to spend too much time more on these other releases that are more than a month out. We'll have Compass game live sessions between now and then. But again, you can see the rest of the schedule. We have War for the Union. Pacific Tide did push out to November. Again, some of the components are coming out a little bit later than we first anticipated. Pacific Tide has game cards, a total of 60 cards in the game. If you go to the product page, you'll get some information. That's another game. First two-player game from Gregory Smith. We've talked about that game in our live sessions as well. So again, this is a pretty, I think this is a pretty good update to our schedule, given how we adjusted the dates. You know, the plan is that we'll be hitting these dates at the close through December of this year. And we're really excited about those new items. So when I did my customer poll, the first poll that we ran a few weeks ago was about how we should focus our Compass Live these sessions. And there were one or two comments from you that said, it'd be great if you can talk more strategic or more long range about certain projects coming up. So to address that, for the few people that asked about, you know, games or projects that are being worked on that are coming up later, I want to share with you a Steven Newberg game project. So this is actually one that may not actually hit our pre-order at Compass. It's most likely, it's definitely, I believe, going to be a Kickstarter for us. And that will, I don't have the exact timing on the Kickstarter, but as you can see here, we have a really nice portrayal of the graphics. So this is a mounted map board game with blocks. You can see the blocks that are pictured on the map, and you can get an idea of some of the sample player aid cards and displays. The artwork is by Brian Miller, who works quite often with us. Matter of fact, he's the one that helped us with the overall box template we use, back of the box, typical back of the box for Compass games. Brian's always been involved in our packaging from day one. So this is artwork, very nice artwork by Brian Miller. So I just want to share with you something that I might not be talking about again for a while until the Kickstarter starts. And perhaps we'll have Steven Newberg on, the designer, to talk about. I think it'd be a good idea to have Steven on to talk about this design. It looks like Area Movement. It's a block game, so I think it'd be really good to have him talk about the game system a little bit. And of course, a lot of you are familiar with block games already, but I really like the graphics to this game. So when this was shared with me, I go, oh, I want to show this tonight. I'd like to show this tonight. And I just mentioned this is something that will be released sometime next year. I'd say first or second quarter of next year is what I anticipate. For once we moved like the wind, the Apache Wars, 1861 through 1886. So I hope that's a thumbs up from some of you as far as something slightly different from Compass, not hex-based, not like Montelimar, 5 maps and 8 counter sheets or whatever, your typical monster. This one's going to definitely fit on a small table, and it has some really nice graphics and doable in a single sitting as well. So I hope that's something that you may be interested in, and that's going to be something, again, coming next year. So what I need to do right now for a moment, you're going to have to excuse me, is I'm going to look away at my other screen, my other monitor, because I need to get the pre-order announcement ready for today. So we're going to go, we're going to cut right to the chase, and I need to log in to the website so I can turn on and enable the new pre-order announcement for today. So if you would please just bear with me for a moment. If you have any questions, feel free to post any questions you might have for me as well while I get this ready. And then we should be able to get started. So again, just want to get this prepped up. And I believe we're good to go. Let me see if there's any questions. I see George has joined, Cole, Paul. Quite a few people have joined, so I don't see any questions on our Zoom platform. So no questions yet from anybody. That's okay. There's time for questions if you have any questions. But let's go ahead and go to pre-orders. So let's talk about the new pre-order announcement for our live session today. And for those of you that are familiar with Battle Hymn Volume 1 by Eric Lee Smith, that game was released on March 1st of this year. So this is one of the reasons why I'm kept pretty busy at Compass and why I enjoy working for Compass, because things are very fast-paced as far as production, new project developments, new projects to work on, new announcements, such as what we're doing today. And what's interesting is even though it's sort of fast-paced, it doesn't mean that announcement may have just happened. In the case of Eric Lee Smith, this is something he's been working on for several months already, actually. So it's not like this happened last night. And obviously, Eric was working on Volume 2 before even Volume 1 was released and shipped. So we shipped Volume 1, Gettysburg and Pea Ridge, on March 1st. And as you can see here, and I'll just sort of zoom in. And again, the maps are not, just so you know, the maps are not complete yet. So when you look at this map and you see terrain off to the right side, you see terrain off to the left side of this map image, this is work that's in progress. It's the same artist that we had for Volume 1, which you all commented you really like the artwork. So we have the same artist, same team, project teams coming together for Volume 2. So it's going to look very similar. So again, the map isn't finished yet for Shiloh. In this case, that's the Shiloh map. And then we also have, I'll skip to the Bentonville. Again, the Bentonville map is not done. You can see on the right side, as far as the hex grid, left side, it's, you know, we haven't completed that work yet, but we want to get some graphics on the page. So this is a first for me. So this is episode number 12. And what's a first for me is we could not schedule Eric Lee Smith for an interview live tonight. So what's happened is I interviewed Eric Lee Smith last night, yesterday, and we did an interview to introduce Battle Hymn Volume 2. So what's going to happen is I'm just introducing the game to you now live, but when I finish this live session and I do the edited HD version of this webcast, you know what's going to happen. I'm going to be adding the interview with Eric Lee Smith to this broadcast. So when you see me post episode 12 later tonight, or no later than first thing tomorrow morning, you'll have the full introduction of Battle Hymn Volume 2 with the interview and discussion with Eric Lee Smith about his game. So I don't want to steal too much of the thunder, because in a few hours, you're going to have a full interview to watch about Battle Hymn. But I do want to mention just a few things. I do want to mention a few things about the game, which I will get into with Eric Lee Smith, just for purposes of the live audience we have right now, and to answer the questions that you have. So there's a few key elements about this design, of this Volume 2 design, that I want to mention that goes beyond. It's basically it's basically Shiloh and Bentonville. So there's two big additions to this game, and I'll go through each really quickly, and then you'll see it discussed in the interview for our session that I'm going to post. The first one is that we're also adding a map extension. It's going to be standalone. It's for Gettysburg. It's for a hypothetical scenario of Gettysburg, which will also be playable standalone. So if you don't have Volume 1 and you buy Volume 2, you'll be able to make use of this, call it a half map extension. You'll be able to play it by itself, and it's going to be a variant for Gettysburg, and that means the counters will have the count. You'll have everything. It will be standalone for you. But what's really going to be interesting about this and intriguing about this, it's on the southern edge of the map. And again, Eric Lee Smith is going to discuss this in the interview, so I won't say more than that right now. But what's really nice is if you have Volume 1 of Battle Hymn, then you've got that bigger campaign. You can now do a new what-if scenario that's now incorporating the original Gettysburg game with the full counter manifest order of battle, and with this new what-if scenario and order of battle. So it's a much bigger, undertaking, a much more complete campaign of Gettysburg, if you will. And personally, it's really meant for that. Even though it can be played standalone, it's really going to shine when it's combined with Volume 1 Gettysburg to give you that new experience of Gettysburg. And again, that's something Eric will get into in the interview that will be airing. The second big bonus, which I think is an important one, is that there's a new solitaire system that's being introduced with this Volume 2 for Bentonville. And what happened there is Bentonville, and Eric Lee Smith commented on this. He says, there's a lot of Civil War battles that were more one-sided affairs. So what's happened, what he's done with Bentonville is he's adding a new solitaire system to the game. And if this solitaire system does quite well, as Eric discusses in our interview, it's going to open up a range of new possibilities for new game topics on the Civil War, because we'll be able to leverage this new solitaire system that will really work well for those more one-sided affairs, for one player, basically. So there is going to be a new solitaire system introduced as well. And there's a few new mechanics. There's a few new mechanics, a little more detail coming out in Volume 2 as well for the games being portrayed there. So again, that's what I'm really excited about with this new release. So it's available now for pre-order. You can do the pre-order and pay later. It's $59 pre-order right now for the 2 battles, plus the bonus for the Gettysburg extension, which can be a standalone or it can be an extension to the original Gettysburg game, and you'll have that as well. And again, the new solitaire system, which might open up a whole new range of options for games for future titles in this series. So I hope that's a thumbs up for everybody as far as I hope you're excited that in really what's it been? It's been 6 months since we released Battle Hymn Volume 1, and now 6 months later we're already announcing Volume 2. So we're not waiting 2 or 3 years to have the next title. This is something we're looking forward to getting out, and you can see the anticipated release date. We try to be conservative here whenever the date's out, at least 5 to 6 months. We're trying to be conservative here. So second quarter of 2019 is when we anticipate the game will be released. So that's quite a bit of a runway. But you can see already the graphics for the maps have already started. So we're making progress on the actual game components themselves. But we're being somewhat conservative here. We're going to call it Q2 of 2019 is what we're going to call this one as far as pre-order for anticipated release date. So again, Eric's done just a bang-up job with all his games. The last thing I want to mention about Battle Hymn, going back to Volume 1. I don't know how many people don't have Volume 1 yet, but I talked with the main office, and we're very low on quantities for Battle Hymn Volume 1. So I anticipate definitely between now and probably before Christmas or before the winter holidays, before those holidays happen, we're going to sell out a Battle Hymn Volume 1. So don't wait till December to order it as a gift for the holidays. It'll be too late. You'll want to order Battle Hymn Volume 1 now. Just to be honest with you, I just want to say that. So again, I'm going to pause here for a moment, because this is where I'm going to be adding the interview with Eric Lee Smith, so we can talk about Battle Hymn. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Sorry for the noise in the background. That's my printer in case you can hear it. Okay, as I mentioned earlier during our live broadcast portion, I've introduced our new pre-order title that we've unveiled today. And I'm pleased to have here joining us Eric Lee Smith, the designer of Battle Hymn Volume 2. He's joining us in a special recorded session. And Eric, I want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Compass Games Live. And it's big news today that we've announced your second volume of Battle Hymn. So we're really excited to have you here for a few moments today.
My pleasure. Greetings to everyone from Miami. I'm on a business trip.
You're a busy traveling man. I know there's been some big developments in your professional life, and congratulations again. Maybe you can share with us a little bit more about what you've been working on or what you're working on now. So I'll be sure to ask you what you're working on now at the very end, because I know people will kill me if I don't ask what you're doing right now, besides obviously Battle Hymn Volume 2. So, but what I'd like to do first, actually, is before we jump into Battle Hymn Volume 2, I'd really like to first talk about the initial release for Compass Games. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just for a moment, just to remind everybody of the first release of Battle Hymn. So that should be showing up on the screen now. So just wanted to give everybody an update for those that do not have Battle Hymn Volume 1. Again, it's 2 games in one package. It's Gettysburg and Pea Ridge. I spoke with the Compass office today, and it's been, only maybe 6 months, I think, since the game was originally released, Eric? Does that sound right? Does that sound right? Yeah. So it's been about 6 months since Battle Hymn was first released earlier this year, and we're about sold out. So that's usually a real good sign. If we can actually have a product, and not every product sold out in 6 months, I can guarantee you that. So really that means the response has been extremely positive. And I know just in terms of my activities, I've got daily activities to monitor, what happens on social media and what people post online. It's been really universal compliments about this release, Battle Hymn Volume 1. So I was hoping you could just take a moment to share with everyone a little bit about your experience and how you thought Battle Hymn Volume 1 came out as far as production value and the end result.
Well, I'm very proud of it. It turned out beautifully, and the Compass team did a tremendous job on the counters and on the rule book, and the maps were done by my colleagues from Shenandoah Studio, my last game company I started. And so it's a combination there of two different teams, and I think it turned out beautifully. I'm very proud of it.
Well, I'd have to say above and beyond, the most positive commentary was split evenly between really liking the game system and noting it's different. And maybe you can talk about what some of those differences were. I think it was the combat. Some people said, oh, I have to learn it, but once I got the handle on it, it was really something new and exciting to play. And then, of course, what you just mentioned, with your partnership, the game maps really stood out. The overall graphical presentation of the map and the contrast of the map with the counters placed on the map was a huge thumbs up from everybody. So maybe you want to comment about any of the design elements other than the striking graphics are beautiful for sure.
Well, I did a game called Across 5 Aprils back in the early 90s for Victory Games, and it was the second of the shitpool games, and I always liked it. It turned out well. It has a lot of fans out there. I always wanted to do a second release on that, and my business life got too busy and I wasn't able to. So it's been in the back of my mind for a long time. So I got a chance here to address it again, and I decided to go ahead and make the game slightly more complicated by complicating only one system, and that is the combat system, which I call the fun part. Rather than adding in supply and core stoppage and leaders and all the rest of the stuff, which, although I personally like games that have those, I find that they slow the game down a lot and you never finish the game. So I wanted to keep the playability high and the time to complete fairly low, with a variety of scenarios, which I didn't get a chance to do in Across 5 Aprils. So we did 4 or 5 in the Gettysburg game, and I think we did 4 in the Pea Ridge game.
Right. Well, again, a huge thumbs up from everybody. Accolades for the game, and why I'm particularly pleased that we could work with you on a second volume. It's great to be able to follow up on an obvious success so quickly. Typically, when a game series of Volume 1 comes out that does so well, there's always the concern I might not see the second edition, the second volume release for 2 or 3 years down the road. It could be quite some time before the next volume of the series comes out. But of course, I'm gonna actually show that now. We're gonna go to our pre-orders now, and again, during the live session, which I've just completed earlier today, I have introduced Battle Hymn Volume 2, but this is an opportunity for you as a designer to please share your insights on what the process was like for how you approach the design for Volume 2, and what were your particular design goals, and any particular things that stand out about this design that you want to share with everybody.
Well, these are the two bookends. This is the first truly great battle of the American Civil War, Shiloh, and the last truly great battle of the Civil War, which is Bentonville. And Shiloh covers both days. I'm also using a new book on Shiloh. I forget the title of it now, but it's a recent book on Shiloh that spends a good deal of its effort on the second day. So it's got some new information in it there, and so it's got a lot of good insights. It's a fun battle. It's a fun game. There are no special rules to speak of, except for a tiny little bit of surprise and some boats that float around for the Union and shell the Confederates. And it's a offense by the Confederates on the first day and offense by the Union on the second day. So it's a lot of fun.
Great.
It's a brutal in the woods kind of mess, but it brings out a lot of the best aspects of the Battle Hymn system, actually.
Now, one thing, since we have Volume 1, it's been out for 6 months, I know for a lot of designers, a second volume gives them a chance to rethink or add polish to any mechanics that came out in the first volume or the first release. And to be honest, I'm asking you this question fresh. We haven't rehearsed any of these questions. I don't know how you're going to answer that question, because I don't know what needs addressing or polish from Volume 1, at least based on the player feedback. Nothing stood out to me as, oh, I hope volume 2 does this or fixes that or does something different. I haven't seen anything like that. So is there anything in terms of a second try at the system, anything that needed polish, or was it a straight?
Not really. What I'm doing is I'm adding some additional wrinkles. I'm not changing or fixing or any of that. There's nothing to fix. The first game has been heavily play tested. I mean, it was play tested as long as your arm. So it works, and it has a long history as a computer game and as a board game. So it works. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm using the Bentonville game, rather than making it just the first day as I did in Cross 5 Aprils, which is a little 5 or 6 turn little mini game. I've actually covered the entire 3 days and put a full map. It's the first major Bentonville simulation game, as far as I know, that's been done. And it's not easy to do because Sherman didn't want to really fight. He stumbled into this battle and did not want to engage in a big battle just weeks before the war was going to end. But they kind of got sucked into it. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to create a new solitaire game system for brigade level Civil War games. And it's a challenge, but I've designed solitaire games a few times, and I think it'll be very, very interesting to solve that problem, which I'm working on now. And assuming that it works, which I trust it will, then that'll open up the ability to do other one-sided battles, such as Fredericksburg and others. Even Chancellorsville is one-sided just because Lee was outnumbered 2-1 and still managed to trash the Union. It's almost impossible to do in a board war game.
So that is one of the new wrinkles for sure. Then, is you're adding a solitaire system. So in Bentonville, if this works well, like you mentioned, it might open up new possibilities for more of the one-sided affairs. And there are a lot of solitaire gamers out there. They just appreciate, regardless of the historical situation, knowing they can play the game, by themselves. Solitaire is a big selling point, I think.
One reviewer noted that I oriented the charts on the map for solitaire play.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's a key consideration. So it's great.
Done that. I mean, maybe somebody else has done that, but I considered it a little bit of a risk. But on the other hand, we had the chart card, so the other guy sitting on the table gives the chart card. The other thing that I'm working on is I'm going to add an extension map to the original Gettysburg game. Not exactly sure exactly how big it'll be. It'll be half a map or slightly less.
Yeah.
That'll extend the battlefield to the south. And I'm then going to add scenarios for the Confederates don't lose their orders in 62, and then Antietam doesn't happen, and so Gettysburg happens in 1862, led by an onslaught of the Confederate cavalry as they march up the road in front of the army. And it'll be a standalone game as part of the series, but it'll also attach to the Gettysburg map. And it'll enable a totally new scenario for 1862 for all of Gettysburg.
Wonderful.
Furthermore, it'll enable a scenario to be created, the alternate history of what happens if Longstreet doesn't just do this, straight on attack, and the second day instead decides to march around the Round Tops and try to head towards Baltimore. And it'll explore that alternative.
That's a wonderful bonus. I think like we have on the website for the product page, we talk about the two bonuses being, the addition of the solitaire system that we're introducing, and then the extension map for Gettysburg with the option. Of course, it's standalone, as you mentioned. And for those that don't own Gettysburg, it's standalone. But for those that own the Gettysburg game, Volume 1, it now creates this larger overall campaign and possibility, as you mentioned. And I believe you mentioned earlier, but maybe it's worth restating. Those are the two big bonuses to the game. Did you say earlier that there were some new elements of the design given the battle situation? You added some rules or any new mechanics?
There's some other, there's some nuances there. There's some nuances in the terrain, actually. Shiloh was unusual in that it rained before the battle and during the battle, and the terrain became a real choke point as the ground became so marshy you couldn't move artillery through it, and it was a real mess. So I'm gonna have a little bit of some special rules about that. But again, I try to avoid special rules if possible, and only put in the ones that are fun.
Yeah.
alternative reinforcement schedules are fun. Hidden units are fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Try not to bog things down.
Well, again, on behalf of Compass, we're not only pleased we can do a second volume, a new entry, but to be able to do it relatively quickly as we're doing and have it available next year. I think we're shooting for around second quarter of next year, actually shipping product. So, we'll see how the timeline goes, but we're pretty good. I think people know our track record now. We're pretty fast with getting products out once they're ready to go and go into final artwork. And you can see the artwork's already started. I've got some map drafts already posted to the website. So the same artist who did the maps, volume 1, he's doing these maps as well. And it looks like the maps are coming along great. These are just works in progress, of course, but they look wonderful. We can see where the maps are going, and they're great.
They're very beautiful.
Well, wonderful. Now I have to ask this question because people are going to beat me up if I don't ask this question. I know it's not a live session with others, but people have been, throwing stuff at me, and I want to survive after this week. So people have been asking me over and over about Antietam. Like, what is possible? You mentioned one-sided battles as options to extend the series with the solitaire system, but a lot of people are asking me about Antietam. So I want to ask you about that, and anything you want to throw in besides that, just general ideas for the future for the series.
Antietam will be one of the series for sure. The whole shit pool system was created based on an Antietam game where I took the little blue and gray game from SPI's series and used Antietam to test the activation system for the big monster game that they were publishing. And that led to the whole chit pool thing. But playing the small Antietam with the chit pool system, I know works. It's a great battle. It's one of the great battle situations. It's one of the great games. It's a nail biter for the Confederates, and it should be a really good game.
Well, you saved my life. Everybody's gonna be very happy that you answered that question that way. Everybody's asking me about Antietam, so I promise I'd ask you that question. Before we close, as we're not going to hold you too long here, Eric, so thanks again for joining us today for this recorded session. Can you share with us, just before you go, what you're working on now? We'd really love to hear what's going on with you now. What projects are you working on today? Let's close with that.
Yeah, July 15th, I joined a startup out of New York City called the Crown League. You can go to thecrownleague.com.
Okay.
It's the first professionally run fantasy football league in the world, where you're not a player in the league, you're an owner, and you're an owner of one of 12, or partial owner of one of 12 professionally run fantasy teams. And it's a very exciting startup. It's a very well-funded startup. A lot of smart people involved with it. It's a simulation game. Fantasy football is a simulation game, and I'm the lead game designer for it. Although fantasy football is a well-proven game design, so there's only little touches on the edges that the game design needs. What it really needs is design on the owner interaction with the GM. And
interesting. That does sound interesting, because I haven't seen that covered.
But it's actually a for-profit thing where if you buy into a team and the team does well, it'll have dividends, and it'll be run like a professional football team. So it's been covered by CNN. The launch was very successful. It's got a tremendous amount of coverage out there. But if you go to thecrownleague.com, you can watch a little 1.5-minute video, and somewhere in there you can look at the credits about who we are, and you'll have a little picture there. But that's what I'm involved with. I'm very excited about it. And that's why I'm in Miami. We're having our first offsite of all the people that are involved.
Well, let me do this. I want to actually share the screen with everybody. I want everybody to have a chance to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So again, I want to make sure people can find the website, because this is a very important part of your life, your professional life. So I believe I'm at the right place here, Eric, thecrownleague.com. So everybody, please, to keep tabs on the great professional pursuits of Eric Lee Smith, please check out the Crown League. Obviously, fantasy football in and of itself is a huge industry. we know how many where the decimal point is and how many zeros there are in front of it. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I enjoyed. I went through the website earlier and saw the founders of the company and the investments made, and looks very promising and exciting. So definitely a big congratulations to you.
Sure, and watch that video. Where little watch button.
Yeah, there's a little watch button right here. So I probably won't come.
Very, very slick video, but yeah, I don't have to do it now. But at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah, probably won't come over too well. That's the only reason I'm not playing it is because it probably won't record well video to video. But yeah, everybody, please check out the watch button, as Eric mentions. And Eric promises he won't be doing 150% of just the Crown League. He's going to save 1% for us for the Battle Hymn series. So don't worry. Or if you buy into the league, there's a better chance the probability goes up that there's more games coming for us, right? All right, Eric. Well, listen, we're glad I could share that real quickly with everybody. But again, just wanted to thank you for taking time out of your busy work schedule. You're literally traveling. You're in Miami right now on business for the Crown League. But, you know, for us, this is big league news for us to have Battle Hymn Volume 2 available for pre-order. We know it's going to be a big success, just like Volume 1, and we're excited about it. And I want to thank you again for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Last thing I want to mention for today, and then I'll look at your questions, is Compass Games Expo. It's almost around the corner, guys. It's going to be Veterans Day, November 9th through the 12th. And I spoke with the hotel today, and we've done really well with the hotel, you know, good booking rates. But I did find out, and we're trying to extend it, that the group rate discount for the hotel, it's going to expire about a month before the event starts, so October 10th. The 10th of October is the deadline to get the group rate for the hotel rooms. So again, I just want to mention, here's the room rates that we have negotiated for our group. It's $136 for a double, $119 single. But again, this room rate might be expiring in early October. We're trying to extend that rate at least a week longer if we can. But again, that's just some background on Compass Games Expo. And again, this is on our website, shows some of the special events, shows who signed up for the event. We have so far 61 attendees, which is great. And then we have our sign-up sheet, which shows the games that are being signed up for as well for the game. So we're really excited about Compass Games Expo. And what I'm going to do really quickly is I want to see if we have any questions really quickly. So let me see if we have any questions. So I'm going to also stop sharing here. So let's see. Questions. I don't think we have. It appears that this will contain a solitaire system that will be able to be used in Volume 1. So the question is, will Battle Hymn contain a solitaire system for Volume 1? Actually, this is a solitaire system that's dedicated to Bentonville only to start. So again, it's given the characteristic of Bentonville, but it is a new solitaire system. And then the goal is to expand that solitaire system to other new titles. But again, I will cross-check that with Eric Lee Smith just to verify that. But again, this solitaire system is going to be starting with Bentonville, and then it should be applicable to future titles. If it is somehow applicable to Gettysburg or Pea Ridge or the earlier titles, I will let you know if that is the case. But right now, my understanding is it's for Bentonville only in Volume 2, with the promise to expand into other battle situations. So excellent question there by Jerome about the Battle Hymn Solitaire system. I'm checking other questions here. Let's see. Checking Facebook Live. Looking forward to Pacific Tide, World War III, Third World War series. So just real big flash updates on that. Again, you saw the schedule for Pacific Tide that's going to be shipping again in November is when we expect Pacific Tide to be shipping based on our schedule here, which you can see right here if I expand the view, just to make that a little bigger. So Pacific Tide will be November of this year, hopefully early November. And then Third World War series, where we stand with the Third World War series right now is we're a little late on getting the maps back. And our goal is we've got 6 full-size maps that have to be created. So we're just waiting on the maps to come in. They are due this week, actually. Actually, they're due right now. So we'll be checking with the artist for that project. And the project team's been working away as far as the counter manifest is done, both for all the new markers, the combat units. We've discussed the player aid cards. what player aid cards we're going to be adding, what new displays we're adding to the game. Again, Third World War series, it's 4 games in one box. It's a big monster project. And as soon as the map drafts become available, which I hope they're available again this week, as they're expected to be available this week, I'll be happy to show them in the next Compass Games live broadcast. So thanks to Eric for that question. I see that I don't see any other questions right now, so I'm just double checking the Facebook live feed. And Q&A, we have a new question that's come up. Do we have a release date for War for the Union? Early October, as you can see here for War for the Union. I don't know if it's early or late October yet because I don't have those specifics yet. That's from Martin. So once I have a specific date, Martin, which happens as we get closer to that release schedule, that's where that timeline, that date window closes for me. So I don't quite know when that date's going to be in October, but as we get closer to October, what will happen is you'll see updates happen to this screen right here. To the I'm sorry, I'm not showing the screen right now. I'm not sharing my screen, but on the home page for Compass, when we do updates, if you go to the home page or the Constant World Forum header page, you'll see the same schedule posted there. So again, since I wasn't showing the screen when I answered the previous question, Pacific Tide is in November, sometime in November, and then War for the Union is actually in October. It's going to be coming in less than 2 months. It will be shipping. Don't know if it's early or late October yet, though. So thanks for the question again, Martin, on that. And I don't see any other questions on the webcast, so I think we've answered questions there. I'm checking Facebook Live, and no, we're still good there. So I think, what about a Conquistador game mentioned in Paper Wars? So I will research out the Conquistador game. That's from Rod Ray on Facebook Live. So Rod, I will find out for you. And typically what I do is when I get an answer, you can come back to this Facebook Live comments thread and stream, and you'll see me reply there to your question on Facebook Live, and I'll try to tag your name so you get an alert once I can get that answer for you. So I will work to get an answer for you about the Conquistador game. And another question, will it retain the card game from World War III Persian Gulf? So yeah, I mean, we're not, so the question is about the Third World War from GDW. The way we approach the designer signature edition, unless the designer wants to make changes, we typically won't make changes to the original game design. We want to honor the original designer's intent unless their intent for the game or design has changed, like has happened, for example, with Forgotten Legions from Van Swan Boris. He changed Drive on Damascus and Bloody Karen because he wanted to improve them, and he thought there were ways to do that that were a departure from the original releases. So that's why Forgotten Legions has really done so well for us. It's a much improved, but it's also a much different game. That's not going to happen with the Third World War series. We're not looking to change that game at all. This will be really staying true to the original release, but we are consulting with Frank Chadwick. I do know there's a change we're making to the rules for the combined campaign of the entire war, all 4 games linked together. So there are going to be some changes to the rules there, and then there's just a ton of game enhancements. I think I mentioned in a previous broadcast, webcast, we're adding 100 to 200 new markers in the game for different uses, just for playability of the game. We're adding about 4 or 5 different display types, game displays for the game. But we're not changing the rules necessarily. So the game system will remain true to the original. It's going to be, frankly, just a much friendlier a gamer experience, or a more deluxe, more Cadillac pampered edition, if you will, of the game. Because we've got so many years of experience, we have a project team of 4 or 5 veteran players that are great fans of the game, very knowledgeable about the series. So all that expertise of years of playing the game and being experts at the game and supporting the game in the years past, all that expertise comes back to bear when we do these new game projects, and we can apply lessons learned or add new ideas, but we're not looking to change the game system. So thanks for that question. Looks like I've answered all the questions, I believe, that I can see at least. So again, it's been great to be back here. It's been over 3 weeks since we last spoke. So please, as a reminder, please check out the edited HD version of this broadcast once it gets posted, because you'll also get that bonus material of the interview with Eric Lee Smith. which I think is a nice, interesting interview to hear Eric talk about Volume 2. I hope it's a game we're going to be pre-ordering and letting people know that we've got the pre-order now available, and the game will be shipping, first half of next year. So we're really excited about that. So again, everybody that's on the webcast, thank you all for joining. Greg, Jason, Jerome, Martin, Tim, and William. Everybody on Facebook Live, thank you again for joining us on Facebook Live. Looks like the video feed held up well on Facebook Live as well. So again, I'll be seeing you probably in a few hours with the edited version. And look forward to seeing you in the next 1 to 2 weeks with our next broadcast. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.